You saved her world, but at what cost? Indented circle, the story's lost. This is Consola Control Gaming. That is Vehement Morningwood, our hero that never turns down a chance to
fight. He fights.
Yes, and I'm late to the gamer. I play games, watch all the cutscenes, read all the text, and explain the stories back to you. If you skip cutscenes and want more than just a bare bones list of actions, or if you missed some context along the way, I'm just trying to help by telling you the story of a game like an actual story. Today, if you let me, I'll be explaining the conclusion of Dawntrail. That's the entirety of the main scenario quest for Final Fantasy XIV patches 7.1 to 7.3. That's Crossroads, Secrets of Eternity, and The Promise of Tomorrow. I'll break down the narrative dramatically back to you so you can skip all the cutscenes. As per usual, I'll recap the story as a first-time playthrough, meaning the story is told ignorant of future content and storylines. Timestamps are in the description, so you can return to the video as you progress through your game. And without further ado, thank you for letting me tell you a story. With time on our hands, we grab a bite to eat in Tuliolao and realize how disconnected we've been with the people. We overhear two men speaking, and although they appear close in age, they're actually father and son. The son struggles to reintegrate because he lacks basic skills like starting a fire. Wook Lamont overhears the men and empathizes with the son. Since we last saw her, Lamont has been trying to improve the societal issues plaguing the people repatriating to Tuliolao. She invites the man to a support group to assist with readjusting to life outside the dome, where he can learn the skills he needs. He leaves the group optimistic, and Wook Lamont joins us for lunch. After our meal, she invites us to the palace to discuss an important matter with her and Kona. To our surprise, in the throne room awaits Alize, Alphino, Kryl, and Grahatia. They were summoned by Kona to educate him on Hanish culture to strengthen the alliance with Radzatan. Istola is researching cross-rift travel and living memory. Thancred and Urianger are currently touring Terral, and Estinian is probably spending too much money howling at the moon or crashing out somewhere. Kona joins us and immediately gets down to business. A state funeral will be held at Solution 9 in memory of Queen Sphene, and we've been invited to attend. It seems incredulous to us that a nation that didn't even remember the dead would be hosting a funeral, but Kona explains that Oblivion found old Alexandrian records detailing funeral ceremonies before the advent of regulators. Although conflicted about going to the funeral of the person we killed, especially Wook Lamont, we want to show the Alexandrian solidarity. We're greeted by Shale and Galuja when we arrive in the back room. Galuja tells us that Shale has been teaching him about the inner workings of Everkeep's systems to make him a more effective ruler when he's older. But the funeral will begin soon, so we leave for Praxis Park to get flowers for the ceremony. At Praxis, Queen Sphene's former aide, Gosan, meets us. While Galuja trains to be ruler, Gosan handles the affairs of the state. He directs us to the flowers and a regulator for the ceremony. He tells us that the regulators are not a requirement. In the past, Alexandrians wore a black token of mourning when attending funerals, so he had some of the regulators painted black so the citizens could wear them for the ceremony. There's not enough for everyone, but they're working on it. The residents of Solution 9 converge at Praxis Park, and the ceremony begins. Gosan gives a beautiful eulogy commemorating Sphene's kindness and love for her people. He promises that even through their sadness, they will always remember their queen. The Alexandrians have not been coping well. They struggle with cognitive dissonance. They wish they could forget as they always have. For a sense of normalcy, they give themselves false hope that the queen is in the cloud, unwittingly entering the first stage of grief. Even Galuja wonders if not remembering his father or the queen would be better. Wook Lamont thinks he needs closure, so she asks if he found any new information on his mother. Although he can now access Everkeep's records, he and Shell haven't found anything. Even if his mother died and was sent to the cloud, there would still be information on her. But the only two Mamulja ever recorded are King Zoralja and Galuja. We offer to help the boy and start looking for answers in the outskirts. One person recalls that Zoralja slayed a Terral Vidral not long before the dome appeared. Another recalls an incident that required the Lance Guard, and a female Mamulja was among their rank. And the last person suggests we head north of Everkeep to the settlement in Ueawara. Zoralja had the loyalty of their chief, Kanaloka. With the information the others gathered, we hypothesize a timeline. 30 years ago, right before the dome appeared, Zoralja slayed a Terral Vidral with the help of a small regiment of Lance Guard, among them a female Mamulja. In doing so, Zoralja cultivated a relationship with the settlement in Ueawara. Then the dome came down, trapping some of the Lance Guard. 20 years ago, the king transferred scientists from Origenics to a research facility outside of Everkeep to develop a new weapon. Requiring secrecy, Zoralja would have posted his most loyal people at the facility. And finally, nearly 10 years ago, he suddenly stopped making regular visits to the settlement. Shale assumes production of any supplies needed for the research facility would have been made at Everkeep. Searching through the logs, she finds that an abnormally large amount of deliveries were made to Uweyawada that ended about 10 years ago. With all signs pointing north, we head to the lake to hop on a hover cargo to the facility. The path to the Uweyawada field station is littered with Levin beasts. Inside roam test subjects and experiments gone wrong. Research notes we find detail the experiments. Zoraljah was the only person in Alexandria's history that considered the risk and was still unethical enough to actually try infusing Pharaoh's souls. They learned that beast souls, even with the memories removed, eventually cause psychological instability. Primal instincts can never be removed. Determining how many times Pharaoh's souls could be used before mutation occurred was complicated. They found it to be totally dependent on the potency of the soul. For example, test subject Atticus mutated and lost all rational thought after only using a single soul. The goal of this research was to eventually use the soul of the extremely powerful Taral Vidral, but it didn't seem likely, so they tried the opposite. Kanaloka's assistant theorized erasing the beast memories, then infusing the beast with a normal soul, and they also volunteered to be the first test subject, but no other information about them remains. When we reach the facility's soul center, Overseer Kanaloka attacks us. His appearance is unusual, far larger than any normal person. He fights with the soul storage unit strapped to his back and attacks with the souls within. He demands our souls for Zoraljah, completely oblivious to his death. When we defeat him, he laments that he could not tame the beast and alludes that something's wrong with the seal. Behind this room, the path leads back outside. In the distance, we see an enormous spherical vortex of fire, earth, and wind. Something sparkles within, and as we approach, the magic suddenly dissipates, revealing the Taral Vidral has been sealed in this magic the entire time. Knowing the destruction it could cause, we defeat Lunipyadi. Before it takes its last breath, we receive a vision of the past. Kanaloka and Zoraljah stand on a hillside before the sealed Taral Vidral. The scientist proposes using his assistant's idea of infusing a normal soul into the Taral Vidral. Zoraljah approves and Kanaloka leaves. Then a Mamul-Jah woman named Tashaljah approaches. The king tasks her with assisting Kanaloka and reporting all his movements. She doesn't initially answer, causing Zoraljah to ask if there's something stopping her from accepting her mission. She explains that she agrees with everything he does, but requests a completion bonus if Kanaloka's research proves useful. Zoraljah, with his back turned, asks her what she desires most, unaware by her stare that she wants him. The king explains that he is a selfish person and he will sacrifice anything to obtain his own heart's desire, but what he wants can't be found under the dome, so nothing within it has any value to him. He tells her that if her work is satisfactory, she can have anything within the dome. We tell the team that we now absolutely know Tashaljah existed, and we head back to the research station for clues to her whereabouts. We find a test subject's journal. They volunteered to have their soul moved to a beast and was able to write only a few days after the soul transfer, but the side effects came quickly and fiercely. Their writings devolved as their baser instincts consumed their every thought, reducing them to impulsively eat to live like an animal. A mangled body hides the journal of a researcher stationed in Uweyawada to teach the settlers how to use electro. Notably, only Kanaloka and Tashaljah showed any aptitude, but they were exceptional. We finally locate a key to the observatory and some cabinets behind the receptionist's desk. The observatory is still operational, running off a generator. This is where the seal on the Taral Vidral was maintained. It's a modified seal, similar to the one that contained Valigarmanda. The computers indicate that the seal fell due to an unexpected anomaly. The Lul Jah accesses the system and downloads all the encrypted files containing his mother's name. We bring the files to Shale, but she needs time to decrypt everything. The twins suggest we check in on the citizens after the funeral, but Geode stops us to confirm that morale is low. Tarali, old enough to remember life before regulators, are afraid to leave Everkeep, and the ones that do want to leave simply don't have the skills needed to survive on the road. They're at a crossroads. Geode believes that reviving the railroad would help by removing the risk while migrating. We go to Shishi Nuizi Springs to ask the railroad's lunatic chief engineer how we can help. Kona and Erenvel arrive soon after with the same goal. Erenvel has been promoted and sports a new look for his new job as an independent contractor. The engineer advises us to check in with the nomadic Hitsaro Amewa Hetsoan and come up with a plan that doesn't disturb the Ronik herd. They move with the herd, and the train could scare off the Ronik, forcing the Hitsaro to make an untimely move. Being Hitsaro himself, but never experiencing the culture, Kona uses this opportunity to get in touch with his roots. The Ronik are considered guides that lead the Hitsaro people to fertile lands. On occasion, the herd may split in two, and likewise, they part with half of their people. Kona surmises that he may have been lost during one of those splits. Kona is tasked with taking a Ronique to graze, but instead, he lets it lead him. While it strayed further away than expected, it eventually brought him back to where he needed to be. Kona has an epiphany. His strict mindset would have just limited the Ronique to man-made paths. He was able to see and experience more of the land and achieve the same result. Now he understands that his inability to perceive the processes of other people's decision does not make them inherently incorrect. With newfound respect for the Hetsaro culture, Kona declares that rebuilding the railroad must be done without affecting the Ronique in any way, no altering their migratory patterns or capturing any that wander too close to the tracks. Erenvel and Wook Lamont report that they found the Ronique's once favorite grazing area nearly empty except for the half-eaten raptor, indicating that there's a large predator nearby. By the behavior, the village chief believes that we're looking for a Turuhetso, or a Ronique Reaver, but it isn't native to this area. Until we're interrupted by the deafening roar of a Turuhetso inbound. The Ronique are paralyzed with fear. We protect them from smaller predators and guide them to safety before the Reaver arrives. The Turuhetso appears and charges at a straggling Ronique, but Kona uses his body as a shield to protect it. We charge to Kona's side with Wook Lamont and attack, but everything just bounces off the beast's crystallized scales. We stall long enough to determine the Turuhetso's weakness and cripple its legs to ensnare it. Kona breaks the scales with a well-placed sniper round. Without the armor, we quickly take down the Ronique Reaver. Erenvel observes that the crystals coating the scales emit a unique ether. They could be repurposed to emit a weak ether pulse, emulating the Ronique's greatest predator. The Hetsaro trader recalls the last time he saw a Reaver, over 20 years ago, when it destroyed a camp in Loazini-Heta. Kona recognizes that he was found there. The man recounts that the Reaver appeared, and while nearly everyone scattered, a brave couple distracted it. While they drew it away, they begged anyone listening to save their son. The trader, in fear for his life, ran and never looked back. Many people from the camp were never seen again, and the survivors moved on with the Ronique. The trader doesn't know what happened to the child, but assumes that they died in the wilderness. Kona wonders aloud if maybe that child was found by the Pelepelu, and then eventually the Dawn Servant. Everyone stares dumbfounded as they realize Kona was that child. He regrets having spent too much time resenting his parents when they were only trying to protect them. We take the crystals back to Shaloni Station and create a gentle etheric whistle that calmly deters Ronique. The test is flawless and the railroad is back in operation. We plan on returning to Everkeep with Wook Lamont, and Erenvel asks to join us. We inform him of our trip north and finding information about Galulja's mother. After seeing off Kakiwa and living memory, Erenvel has changed. He openly admits Galulja's feelings mirrored his own. Saying this leaves us slack-jawed, but when Lamont points out his mini Kakiwa pennant, the Erenvel we remember appears, and he awkwardly denies any sentimentality. Back in Solution 9, we catch everyone up again. But Ishtola has bad timing and arrives now, so we need to do it again. She's been researching the Sky Deep Cenote this entire time and is now ready to move on to living memory. She only came to recruit an expert on Electrope to escort her. She warns us though, when she returns, she wants to take a look at our key. And that is not a euphemism, but I kinda wish it was. What?
All right, yeah, she's kind of hot.
Shell presents the decrypted audio files to Shalja. Galulja hears his mother's voice for the first time that he can remember. She confirms our theories. Shalja was a surgeon in the Lance Guard, dispatched to Yasalani to eliminate a Tara Vidral. She officially stayed in the area to document the location of medicinal herbs in the region. In reality, she stayed around for the opportunity to stand out to Zoralja. At home, she secretly watched him train, admired him as a leader, loved him from afar, and obsessed over him incessantly. She didn't want to return to Tuliolao where she'd have to face the reality of being invisible to him. She understood that Zoralja would never look at her the way that she looks at him. But when the dome appeared, she was one of a small group of Landsguard and the only female Mamulja among them. She finally had the perfect opportunity to be noticed by him. As the experiment progressed, her desire to claim Zoralja for herself was her motivation. Then, Galulja was born, and she still didn't get her wish. She thought that if Zoralja only held his son, she'd finally get what she'd always wanted, but it could never happen. Zoralja, leaning closer to sociopath on the socio-to-psycho scale, was unable to feel sympathy for, be empathetic to, or love anyone over himself. He called Galulja a thing and told Tishalja to get it away from him. She still held on hope that they could be a family, but the research stagnated. Kanaloka blamed the lack of progress on Tishalja for being distracted by parenthood. In the last recording before the incident, she hid her child before work to avoid another confrontation. Galulja was found in the downdrifts nearly 10 years ago, meaning someone moved him there via hover cargo and then left him. We still don't know what exactly happened at the facility, and we haven't found any concrete evidence that Tishalja is dead, only missing. Galulja can't tell if he's happier now, but he feels it's better to know the truth. He thanks everyone for helping him piece together his history, and with the mystery partially solved, Y'shtola and Shell leave for living memory. Before we can leave ourselves, Geode stops us with some interesting news. Although the railroad is restored and word has gotten around Everkeep, no one is boarding to Tuliyollao. In fact, it's the opposite. Out in Solution 9, the Alexandrians look worse off than before as they mourn a death in the Thunder Yards. The departed lost all their spare souls in Zoralja's assault, and today they were struck by lightning. Paranoia washes over the people. They question whether the regulators even work after losing the ability to erase memories of the departed. Some strictly believe they're supposed to die peacefully in the care of an usher the way it's always been. Others realize that more citizens could have died violently than from old age, and no one could have been the wiser. The existential dread spreads like wildfire. Suddenly, the crowd goes silent as they can't believe their eyes. Queen Sphene has returned. She speaks as though nothing has happened. She singles out a citizen by name and showers them in her fairy tale princess aura. We're too shocked to formulate words. Wook Lamont is appalled and offended. Sphene is supposed to be gone forever. Lamont's voice wavers from the shock as she asks Osan what is going on. He smiles and simply says the queen is visiting her people as she normally does. Wook Lamont begins to lose her temper. She asks how could he say that when he officiated Sphene's funeral? We laid flowers, we mourned. He turns and stares at the flowers as though he's just seen them for the first time. The lights on his regulator begin flickering and produces an odd sound. When it stops, Gosan looks at us like we're crazy. That funeral was for the people that lost their lives in Zoralja's attack, he says. The Alexandrians beg Sphene to return the system to the way it was so they can forget the dead, but she admits that she can't, but proposes another solution for her citizens. They all become endless. Sphene created a new system to transplant memories directly into an ethereal vessel that is not reliant on soul cells. They'll be able to live however they please for as long as they'd like. She explains that for the time being, their stores of ether are too low to turn everyone endless. The black Neo regulators received at the funeral are some of the 5,000 new models ready for distribution. When the rest are given out, those people will be called on to become endless. Gating the promise of eternal life behind a lottery does little to relieve the Alexandrians. Wook Lamont, enraged, confronts Sphene in front of everyone. She knows that this is not the real Sphene. She would never pit her people against each other or be satisfied with only saving some of them. Lamont demands the imposter to reveal themselves, but Sphene, surrounded by her people, cordially bows to Wook Lamont and introduces herself as the Queen of Reason before curling her lips into a eating grin. The Alexandrians all suddenly stop and stare at us. We hear their neo-regulators activate all at once. Realizing we're helpless to do anything, we decide to retreat to the back room. As Wook Lamont walks away, the crowd behaves as if what just happened didn't just happen. They laugh and talk to Sphene, but when we turn our back, Sphene looks our way and smiles devilishly. Back with our allies, we rationalize the difficulty of proving that Sphene is a fraud. Whoever is pretending to be her has the cunning to imitate her, the knowledge to alter regulators, and the capability to alter memory in real time. We've been forced to our back foot and need to tread lightly until we can identify the real threat. Meanwhile, in living memory, through the eyes of an unknown person regaining and losing their consciousness, we see Shell and Y'shtola in the distance. As the woman struggles to get to her feet, she calls out for her people and wonders aloud if they're safe. She doesn't understand how she got there. Y'shtola rushes to the woman, but she faints. We're left with the following verse. In fear of death, the people turn. The Queen reborn, their fates to learn. Raha, Geode, and Crowl have been keeping tabs on Sphene and notice that she only seems to appear in public to encourage citizens to become endless. There's a growing confusion and resentment as the people wearing regulators do not remember Sphene's passing, while everyone else does. Crowl asks us to join her in the break room to meet someone, and in back, we see Y'shtola, Alizé, and Shale stand at the bedside of Sphene. We can't believe our eyes. But Y'shtola explains that she believes that this is the original flesh and blood Sphene, soul and all. She found her in living memory suffering from Levin sickness. Y'shtola realizes Sphene had a severe etheric imbalance, so she asked Alizé to bring a pork seed to treat the queen. Wook Lamont doesn't understand, and insensitively, she says out loud that she watched Sphene die, scaring this Sphene awake. Defiantly, the woman exclaims that she's alive and she sits up and scans the faces in the room. She panics when she doesn't recognize anyone and calls out for Otis and Zelenia. Alizé, in a soothing voice, approaches Sphene and lets her know that we mean her no harm. The queen begs someone to explain what's going on. Y'shtola promises answers, but first she needs a few of her own. Sphene is able to confirm that she is the real Queen of Alexandria. She recently woke up in a dark, unfamiliar room, and outside, she found herself in a city made of electrope. Ishtola tells her that she was in the Meso terminal, slumbering in an electrope casket that preserved her in cold stasis for 400 years. And whoever stored her away also fabricated her death during the storm surge. Now that we've begun to peel the band-aid, Sphene wants to know everything, and we tell her the history of Alexandria after her death, regulators, the soul system, the endless, oblivion, the culling at Solution 9, and of course, her two counterparts. She finds it difficult to come to terms with what she's learned. She's lost in time and a stranger in her own home. Galulja suggests she goes out and sees what's become of Alexandria and its people. Although there's a chance we may run into the fake Sphene, the real Sphene anxiously accepts our offer to accompany her. She still wants to connect with her people, despite the circumstances. We wait in the back room for Sphene to get changed, and she emerges wearing modern Alexandrian attire. Before we head out, this Sphene will be called Sphene. The fake Sphene is a simulant, and the Sphene we fought during Dawntrail is Endless Sphene. Sphene dons a hood to hide her identity as we walk around Solution 9. It's nothing like she's ever seen. We point out some landmarks and Galulja acts as our tour guide. We tell Sphene that Tuliyolau and Everkeep are now connected by railroad, and she tells us that the same tracks used to lead to Limblum in her own reflection. Through conversation, we find Sphene to be sincere, fair, compassionate, yet somewhat timid. She doesn't want to cause waves, but she's opinionated. In retrospect, Endless Sphene's personality was just an extreme exaggeration of her own negative and positive personal traits. Unlike the Endless Sphene, the soul system makes Sphene uneasy. She doesn't agree with the entire system, from the treatment of souls to forgetting loved ones. She believes those memories make us who we are. On the other hand, she would not forcefully impose her own beliefs onto her people. We take Sphene to a coffee shop to talk. Now that she's had a chance to see Alexandria for herself, the weight of it all finally begins to sink in. At first, she was relieved to be back and excited to be among the people again. Now she sees that she's a stranger and these aren't her people anymore. She's heartbroken because she's at home and doesn't have a place. But still, she's happy to see that Alexandria endured. But in the end, she's lonely. On our way to Nexus Arcade, we find a citizen having a panic attack. He was passing through on his way to a meeting when the area triggered a flashback. Once calm, he thanks us and introduces himself as Malachite the Usher. We figured that job no longer existed considering the circumstances, but he explains that he no longer attends to the dying. Now the dying pass into care of their family. Ushers only retrieve the remains. As ghoulish as it is, we offer to help him finish his duties for the day, but he admits that he's not technically on official duty. He explains that the bodies that he retrieves are entombed and kept in cold storage at a government facility, but the personal effects are destroyed. He believes that should be the family's choice, so he's been secretly delivering the belongings to the loved ones. We help him and make 4 deliveries. The first person is thankful to receive their parents' belongings. They understand the importance of remembering and admit that spare souls make them take their life for granted. The second person is creeped out by the delivery. It belonged to a dead person. It makes them question their own mortality. The third person wears a neo-regulator and doesn't remember the departed at all. They haven't decided if they want to become an endless yet, because technically it would mean they still have to die. They just haven't seen the benefit yet. The last person we deliver to recognizes us from our Arcadian matches. He's actually the man we watch yell at Endless Sphene in Resolution. Lathander quit fighting and now provides rehabilitation and physical therapy services for the people injured in Zeralja's attack. Although he still wears a regulator, he treats his body like a gift from his parents. He appreciates the life he has and lives it now as though it's the only one he'll ever have. If this is just a small sample of how the citizens are currently coping with death, the consensus has quickly become scattered. We report to Malachite that the deliveries are done for the day. Before he departs, he gives us his opinion. He believes that we are all the sum of the memories we've shared with our loved ones. Sphene uncomfortably agrees. Endless Sphene was based on her as she is right now. But over time and through experiences, Endless Sphene made choices the original never would. But still, in the end, as the original and the source, Sphene has to own up for all of those terrible decisions. Speaking of the devil, the simulant stares at us in the distance. When we notice, it smiles, turns, and walks away, goading us to follow it. Obviously, this is a bad idea, but what the hell else can we do? We chase it down Neon Stein, and just as we think to ourselves, yep, that's bait, This is a trap, and she's a master bait. We're struck by a huge bolt of lightning. Solution 9 goes dark, and a single monitor turns on in the street. The man on the screen addresses us from the shadows. He says he's not surprised it didn't kill us. He's trying to determine exactly how much force it will take to kill us, as though we're some rat in his experiment. Sphene struggles trying to recognize the faceless voice, as the simulant saunters over to us cheerful, yet menacingly, as if she's toying with her food. It asks for the key in a jovial manner, then thinks to itself, perhaps it did things backwards. Maybe it should have asked first before hitting us with lightning. The simulant reveals that everything from the very beginning was a carefully orchestrated plot to use the key to channel ether from other worlds. Endless Sphene was programmed to complete an impossible task. Turning every soul that dies into endless and maintaining them indefinitely is a totally unattainable objective. But programmed to never see the logical fallacy, it continued to escalate in its search of solutions until it finally came to the conclusion that they needed. It was a glorified bloodhound. The man says he has a plan for mankind's evolution. Bodies have drawbacks. Population spread unchecked, resources become scarce, conflict is unavoidable, and death is inevitable. But as endless, mankind will have managed eternal preservation. Calyx, Sphene suddenly remembers. He mastered electro technology and founded preservation with the goal of curing Levin sickness. She demands that he gets rid of the simulant, but it just twists the knife. It tells Sphene that the kingdom doesn't need her because she's just flesh and blood and fragile. They need better. Calyx demands us to give him the key or suffer the consequences. Then the feed ends. Although the simulant's words hurt, Sphene knows that they're actually kinda true. While she slept, she lost her ability to use healing magic, but she's going to train so that she can help us in the future. She gives us some more background information on Calyx. He's a genius, but was born with a disease that left him little time to live. So obviously, he too is an endless. Calyx intends to steal ether from other reflections, but implied that he has no intention of saving everyone. He knows exactly how much ether would be necessary to sustain an endless and limit their creation accordingly. Cryo surmises that he's using the simulant to stoke fear of death and entice people to become endless. Shell tracks his transmission to a preservation terminal in the Foundation sector. Galulja recognizes the place in his mother's records. It's where the old castle was hidden and the foundation of Everkeep. Shell and Cryle agree that locating him was entirely too easy. So this is clearly a trap that we unfortunately have no choice but to walk into. We gear up for the fight and take the elevator down to the Underkeep. Thanks to Tashalja's records, we have a general map of the area. Wooklamat, Cryle, and Graha take point with us, while Shell navigates from the rear with Sphene. We jump into the sediment funnel to reach an access hatch, but we run into a gargant. It uses the sand to hide before ambushing us. We exterminate it, then knock down a support beam and create a path forward. Emerging from that access hatch, we get our first sight of Castle Alexandria. As we approach the front, Shell's transmission ends. Small, ancient sentries guard the castle doors, but inside, Sentry Model S0 attacks on sight. Unable to compete, it removes its limiters, allowing it to project images of itself that attacked independently. We defeat it, and Calyx asks us to proceed. We continue until we reach the Chamber of Patience, where 4 electro turrets are readied at the far side of the room. A large monolith bearing the Alexandrian royal crest descends from above. Calyx's final experiment begins. Valia Pira is a defensive weapon designed to control other armaments. As the fight progresses, Calyx adds additional weapons to the fight, and the monolith becomes more aggressive. After we destroy it, he says that he can finally proceed with a real analysis. With the castle cleared of enemies, Wooklamat has Sphene and Shell move with the main group. Further inside, we trail to the rear while we chat with Sphene. As we walk down the series of hallways, Sphene fondly remembers walking down this same path to watch Otis and Zelenia train. Zelenia was Otis's second in command in the Royal Knights of Alexandria. Always wanting to fight by their side, Sphene began to learn magic. But at 15 years old, her parents died and she was elevated to queen. As a queen without a successor, she was forbidden from taking to the battlefield. Wooklamat realizes that we've been walking for quite a while now, and she calls back to Sphene for directions. But she's gone, and so are we. We're teleported to the ruins of the throne room. A machine activates, starting a chain reaction of projectors initializing, and the room's appearance begins to transform to how it looked in its prime, just as the simulant and Calyx warp in. The simulant tells us that they installed a teleporter that triggers in the presence of the key. That's how they caught us. In here, we're unable to contact the group, so they'll have to search the castle for us. Alex confesses that he does have one last test to precisely gauge our strength. He summons a huge sentry in the form of a woman. The simulant calls it Selenia and cartoonishly begs it to protect her. Sphene is appalled. The simulant explains that Selenia's memories couldn't be preserved while she was alive, so she's been reconstructed from Sphene's recollections of her. Sphene is enraged, but she's unable to do anything, so she begs us to destroy that monstrosity that stands before us, perverting Selenia's memory. We nod and use Asm's crystal to call forth our reflections to help us in this battle. Alex's expression changes for the first time. This is what he needed to see, the true source of our inexplicable power. The sentry, Selenia Triantaphili of the Alexandrian Royal Knights, attacks with her massive sword. Sphene remarks on how the machine faithfully recreates the warrior's blade work. After taking damage, it reveals its secret weapon, the Roseblood Bloom, a magical glyph that covers the battlefield and causes us to bleed profusely. Despite the odds, we best the fabled knight. Having all the information they need, the simulant calls it a day. Alex levels with us. As long as we have what he wants, he will pursue. And eventually, he will win, because he's endless and we will die. He tells us that we're only delaying the inevitable when we could be saving the people of the Ninth and the Source. He knows about the other reflections and refers to them the same way we do. The simulant calls us arrogant for believing that we were the only ones that knew about the other reflections. Regardless of what we do, the simulant says, the seeds of discord that it planted have now taken root and begun to show. The people see the benefits of transcending death. Now that they've interacted with those that forget the departed, the masses will split. There are the few that have and the many that have not. And that majority will long for the same blissful ignorance of death. And thus, her mission is complete, and she shuts down. Alex thanks us for allowing him to assess us and leaves us a parting gift. The room reverts back to its original appearance, and the tiara sits on the throne. With the threat gone, Sphene says goodbye to Selenia. Our allies finally catch up, and we tell them what they just missed. Cryo points out that Calix specifically identified the realms with the terms that we use. It begs the question how he discovered the shards of Aetheris. Shale examines the tiara and determines it's a type of regulator that contains the memories of endless Sphene. The question is, why did Calix abandon it? Either the simulant's role is complete, or he has a copy of the memories. Either way, Sphene elects to hold on to it. In the back room, we call up our friends. Ishtola informed Gossen of the cured 11 sickness, so they're working on treating everyone. Erenvel noticed that some people stop wearing their regulators, and it's leading to confusion, as people's memories of Sphene don't align. Alphino is out in the city and worries that if the Alexandrians don't see Sphene for a while, rumors and panic may spread. Alizé is actively curing people of Levin sickness. She's about to treat Milos, the boy Endless Sphene took us to meet in the residential district. We take Wook Lamad and Sphene to see Milos. He's sitting up on his own, and although labored, he's able to speak. Alizé administers another treatment, and his mother, Isadora, admits that she used to wish that her son could be endless so he wouldn't suffer. But now they can truly live as themselves and not something else. Alizé warns that Milos must avoid lightning-infused objects, including his regulator. Isadora doesn't argue. To protect her son, she even considers moving out of the dome. Upon exiting the building, an announcement plays throughout Solution 9. The distribution of the Neo-regulators has ended. The citizens stop in their tracks. The voice directs the recipients to equip their regulators and promptly complete the device registration. Evolution is at hand, it says, and together they will rise above death. The have-nots begin to turn on their friends in envy. Still, some of the owners of Neo-regulators are unsure about becoming endless. Others look to it as the cure for the PTSD they developed after being repeatedly murdered. The simulant was right, but now the seeds of uncertainty are in full bloom. Sphene correctly perceives that having been insulated from death until recently, as a collective, the Alexandrians don't know how to handle the emotions involving it. This all started with the funeral. Before it, the Alexandrians were learning how to cope with death, and the funeral was their biggest step in confronting and overcoming grief. But with the memories of the attendees erased, they began to remind the people making progress of what things could be like for them. Blissful and oblivious. Jealousy and regret began to fester and spread. We return to Shale and Galuja in the back room, and nostalgia runs in immediately after us to tell us that a mechanical soldier killed a civilian in true view. Knowing that only someone with a king's authority could order a soldier to do that, Shale checks the status on the authority, but she's blocked. Erenvel calls us to report that a mech soldier also killed a civilian in the outskirts, and more sentries are en route. He leads them away from the settlement, and we catch up to him cornered in East Yasalani. We protect them from the sentries, just as Wuklamat and Alizé catch up. They tell us that as they ran here, they noticed that only some of the machines became hostile. There's just no way to tell until it's too late. We regroup in the outskirts where we find Malachite with our allies. He was assigned to retrieve the remains of the person killed in the settlement, but when he arrived, there wasn't a body, only a pile of dust that quickly blew away in the wind. The residents have no idea what happened to the body. No one saw anyone take it, but they all remember the deceased. Sphene wonders if Calyx is using the machine to scare people into registering their neo-regulators. Then suddenly, all of our link pearls ring at the same time. Raha says that a vehicle's interface locked and the driver crashed into people at Nexus Arcade. Geo reports that a hover cargo threw off its driver and is rampaging down True View. Alizé adds that a riderless machine in the government sector mowed down several people begging for neo-regulators. Sphene instinctively rushes back to Solution 9 and Wuklamat follows. Alizé and Geode go to the downdrifts and we run back to Everkeep to help whoever we can. It's total chaos all over again. Wuklamat tends to a citizen while Sphene is somewhere deeper inside. As we search for her, we find Lathander fighting the sentries with Oblivion, while Ishtola is protecting Resolution as Gossen leads the Alexandrians to Sanctuary. The survivors of Zoralja's attacks are reliving their trauma. Cryo watches a woman kneeling over her loved one in anguish, regretting not being an Endless. When we finally find Sphene, she's in a remote area of the park, grieving over a woman she couldn't save. When the attack ends, the rogue machines all suddenly deactivate as though their purpose was complete. It's not a coincidence that the attacks followed immediately after the announcement. Galulja's king's authority was returned to him as soon as the violence stopped. Ishtola suggests shutting down the sentries just in case, but we can't because they also function as medical personnel and manage food production. We wouldn't be able to heal the injured or feed the people. In compromise, Galulja makes it so that they can't use weapons. Sphene has finally reached her breaking point. She realized that she's been helpless all at her own fault. She's been too prideful, yet relying on pity. Opinionated, but not assertive. Moral, but passive. She needs to get stronger to protect Alexandria, but the only way she can truly be strong enough to protect her people is with our help. This is the conclusion that Wuklamat had always hoped Endless Sphene would reach. Sphene commits to studying magic with Ishtola and Alizé so she can take the offensive in the future. In the meantime, all we can do is stay vigilant. Calyx won't stop coming for us as long as we have this key. Meanwhile, in living memory, Calyx sits atop the statue of Sphene. He thinks out loud as though he's double-checking his work for the 1000th time. The limitations of the physical body mean that flesh is worthless. Therefore, mankind should evolve. But he's already decided how. Now, it's time to pose a new question. Reprieve from death, but at what cost? For endless life, a legion lost. We take the key out of the city to test the theory and return to discover that there weren't any attacks in our absence. Along with the lack of action, there's also been a lack of new leads. Shale and Galulja can't find hide nor hair of Calyx anywhere, but his eyes are felt in every camera. We accompany Geode, Cryo, and Sphene on patrol in Neon Stein. The calm after the attack hasn't improved the atmosphere. The Alexandrians exude desperation, and despondency is near universal. Their fear is palpable. As the quota for registration approaches, the residents with neo-regulators act haughty and sanctimonious towards the have-nots. They relish their ignorance of the dead, making it harder for the rest of Alexandria to grieve. As citizens recount their experiences during the attack, we realize that their stories share a common thread. The people killed did not wear regulators. We ask a sentry how many of the civilians killed in this sector weren't wearing regulators, and it tells us all of them. We try to confirm this with a sanitation worker, but there weren't any bodies when she arrived, only dust. Malachite said the same thing back in the outskirts. Calyx is targeting the people that refuse to become endless and using their deaths as a tool to drive registration. Galulja alerts us to a sentry attack in the residential area, so we rush across town. We find a man from Oblivion on the floor as a lobby sentry destroys another that's overflowing with Levin. Soon after, it begins to glitch as well, and its movements become jagged, unbalanced, and lumbering. It focuses on the resident and turns his head 180 degrees, then backpedals towards the man like the Walking Dead compelled to feed. Geo puts the machine down before it can do any harm, and the resident informs us that it unlocked the door to his apartment and tried to kill him. Our comrade from Oblivion tried to save him, but the sentry won. Gio tells us to lock the residential radius down while he conducts a sweep of the area. A loud thud coming from Isadora's apartment draws our attention. Wayakwe pants of fatigue after destroying a larger machine inside, but it still managed to injure Isadora. She's unconscious and bleeding heavily as Milos cries over her. Sphene begins healing and assures the boy that she will do everything she can to save his mother. As he stares at her hooded figure, her warm words ignite a familiar feeling. He realizes who she really is. Shocked yet comforted, he smiles and thanks her. Once she's stable, Isadora is put to bed to rest until she recovers. Milos thanks us for saving his mother, but can't stop himself from staring at Sphene in astonishment. We return to the lobby to check on our comrade, but Cryle has already confirmed his death. Wayakwe's backup arrives and reports that Geode has gone dark. We go out into the city searching and calling for him, but he doesn't answer for us either. Elsewhere, Gio runs up the stairs of a neighboring residential radius, searching for anyone in need of help. He finally answers Wayakwe and informs her of his whereabouts. Around the corner, he sees another glitching sentry extracting the soul from a corpse, but the process is taking longer than normal. Suddenly, the body turns to dust all at once. Alex isn't just collecting the souls, he's draining the bodies of corporeal ether. Geode reports his findings, but an old man walking across the lobby grabs his and the machine's attention, and the machine begins to slowly trudge towards the man. Geode shoots it, exposing himself and drawing another sentry's gaze. Out of ammo, he tries to escape with the old man, but the old man is another sentry in disguise. The pursuing sentry closes in, while two more mimic Queen Sphene's gate as they surround him. Once a few meters away, they stop as if they're granting Geode his last words. Or they're playing with their food. They snap into an attack stance in unison, before one slowly staggers forward, then lunges. Cryle and Sphene help us search for Geode, and we find his gun. We draw our weapons and carefully move into the lobby. 4 sentries stand over a pile of dust, and as the lead sentry raises its head to look at us, the realization slowly dawns on us. Calyx uses the sentry to tell us that we stopped him from reaching his quota of ether. Sphene asks why he's doing this, and he tells her it's simply the most efficient way to gather ether for the new Endless. 7% of Alexandria's population yields enough energy to create 5,000, while 11% could maintain them for 800 years. The machine smugly hands over Geode's soul, and Calyx asks if we would hand over the key to stop his culling. We tell him no, and he sighs of exasperation, momentarily revealing a hint of emotion under his mask of stoicism. He disconnects and leaves us alone with Geode's remains. Everyone in the back room takes Geode's death hard, especially Shale. We entrust his soul to her. She tries to be gracious and thanks us for accompanying Geode on his last mission. She even reports that we saved a lot of people. And with the information we've brought her, she's hopeful we can find Calyx's hiding place. But not right now. She asks for just a little time before she can move on. A little time to grieve, a little time to mourn. Having lost friends of our own, we understand that no one is unaffected by death. We ask Shell if there's anything we can do for her, and she invites us to come with her to the old hideout. She pours a glass for Geode, and we drink to our fallen comrades. Cryle and Nostalgia join us to reminisce. Shell and Geode met by having a drunken fistfight, and Kakiwa broke up that fight, then recruited them to her resistance. Eventually, they found the back room where they discovered Oblivion's secrets. Inspired, they adopted Oblivion's mission. Able to remember the good times and deal with her feelings, Shell thanks us and tells us she's ready to get back to tracking Calyx. Sphene requests us in the outskirts because she thinks the residents are acting strange. That's an understatement. The zeal of the registered has become cultish, and the have-nots bargain for regulators like addicts craving a fix. With each new registration, their fear deepens, and it's only a matter of time before this boils over. A man with a neo-regulator abruptly cuts our conversation short to recite an unusual prayer about darkness. Then he enters into a trance-like state. This reminds us of something. We just can't quite put our finger on it. Alizé calls us back to Everkeep because Calyx is escalating. Every screen in Solution 9 displays living memory, and the voice of Queen Sphene encourages the people to run from death and accept eternity. Every moment is a gamble. They've won and live today, but they must roll again tomorrow. And if they win again, well, there's always a day after that. Death only needs to win once. The voice that once soothed the nation now nurtures its existential dread. If death makes us all equal, she urges them to be better, be endless. More Alexandrians rush to register their neo-regulators than ever before, and Wook Lamont is bombarded with requests for asylum in Tuliolao. She tries to calm the situation by promising all of Alexandria is welcome, but it's not working. Sphene wants to help, but feels that she'd be overstepping her boundaries. The easiest solution would be abandoning Everkeep, but Wook Lamont desires to honor her promise to Queen Sphene and safeguard Alexandria's future, its independent future. Sphene struggles with her desire to treat Everkeep as her home, while not being sure if she's accepted. She's still an outsider, but Lamont, having cared for the nation, extends an offer of friendship and invites Sphene to help her protect Alexandria. Shell reports that she discovered secret preservation laboratories in Everkeep's 10th level, and we immediately go to investigate. As we scour the rooms for clues to finding Calyx, we discover notes that suggest that these labs have been hidden ever since Sphene ruled. One lab is where they experimented with soul extraction, while they manufactured the key to interdimensional fusion in another. We notice that the key displayed lacks a crystal shard inside. Cryo realizes she misunderstood everything. The key has always been the Malala relic, the crystal. Her parents did say preservation augmented the relic with electrope, and that casing is how Calyx has been tracking the key and us. But if that's the case, we wonder why he isn't attacking now. Wook Lamont recalls that he said he was measuring our strength. She surmises that he doesn't have anything that can defeat us. His pragmatism is revealing his vulnerability, just like Zoralja. Shell unscrambles corrupted security footage for us. A researcher admits to her colleague that she believes death is a necessary evolutionary step for man. She admires Calyx's commitment. He became endless to completely focus his time on research, but even so, she's decided to quit. Her colleague immediately shoots her dead and says that there are no exceptions. Records in the director's office recount when the key triggered an explosion, but successfully created a portal, temporarily. 13 people died in the incident, but preservation only felt that 4 were worthy of turning into Endless. The rest were converted to ether. Another entry reveals that Kryl's parents were found after discarding the key and executed. Without the key, preservation lost its purpose, and the complex was put into stasis mode. All personnel were reduced to ether, and their memory data was archived. We find a hidden office within the office, and Shell takes as much intel as she can from the terminal inside. To point out some similarities that might help us discover Calyx's location, we discuss what we know about the Endless. They're formless entities composed of memories. They can only interact with the physical world through bodies made of corporeal ether, like primals, or machines they inhabit, like how a void scent can occupy a corpse, or an Ascian wears a man. Cryo surmises that, like Ascians, the Endless go to another realm when immaterial, somewhere like the virtual domain we entered in the Meso terminal. Shell admits that Calyx could have easily partitioned and protected the sector of the terminal containing his own memories. She also tells us that every camera in the room just turned, and they are now focused on us. Calyx begins to appear on every monitor. Emboldened by his latest creation, he confirms that his data is in the Meso terminal and invites us to break the memory bank. Wook Lamont asks Calyx why he didn't just take the key from Queen Sphene when she entered the virtual domain. The question triggers a brief emotional response. He admits that he made a miscalculation. When the Queen became one with the control systems, for a moment she wielded greater authority than his own. We leave the containment complex to apprise Gossen of our plan to raid the Meso terminal, but he's been affected by Calyx's propaganda campaign and sits on the fence. He sees the irony of killing the citizens to turn others endless, but he feels that shutting down the creation operation is also disrespectful to the people that were called. Oblivion briefed our friends around the city, so they interrupt Gossen and show their support of our plan. They want to learn how to live through the fear of death and endure through the pain of loss. They know they've been coddled and protected to the point of entitlement, and after seeing the Tarali live happy and meaningful lives, they are confident they can as well. Their words persuade Gossen to remove his regulator. He apologizes for wavering and bravely declares that Alexandria will endure. He turns to Sphene and reveals that he knows who she really is. In fact, they all know she has a terrible disguise. They tell Sphene that they understand that she's not Queen Sphene, but they welcome her all the same. Finally accepted, Sphene pulls back her hood, ready to face Calyx. For everyone we've lost and the people we've watched die, for Namika and Galul Jaja, Zoralja and Tashalja, for Sir Otis and Zelenia, the King, the Queen, and the Royal Knights, and lastly, for Geode. In honor of their memories, we make this last stand together. Queen Sphene thought the real Sphene was too kind and too gentle to rule, but she was wrong. Sphene rises to the occasion and leads us to the Meso terminal with Wook Lamont by her side. Various sentries guard the inner workings of the Meso terminal. Calyx tries to wear us down and dull our senses. As we fight through the halls, the electrope changes the environment, making it hard to know what's real and what's not. Endless upon endless impede our progress. They aren't warriors, just obstacles to exhaust us. The memory of a Kyurgeon takes the Hippocratic Oath so seriously, he tries to kill us to protect his patients. We don't have any good medical puns, so we send him to the morgue and continue our climb. At the far end of the next floor, 4 executioners separate the party and fight us individually. They be head and shoulders above the other Endless. We're starting to feel the effects of Calyx's game plan, but we eliminate the Axemen and push through the resistance until we reach the bottom of a tower. Calyx calls for the Endless to remember their fear of death and compels them to fight to protect everyone they love. The memories flood to a point, then a gigantic Endless takes shape. The entity obeys Calyx as the tempered wood of primal. Dozens of Endless join the battle and use kamikaze tactics, but after taking a thrashing, the giant immediately disperses into ether. Sphene realizes that because Calyx's partition was hidden for hundreds of years, these Endless are preservation personnel and other people preserved before the storm surge. Calyx appears when we reach the top of the tower. He tells us that memories are the essence of self, so preservation does not duplicate them. If we can destroy the memory bank before he kills us, we win. Sphene asks what he hopes to achieve with eternal life, but he scoffs at the question. He says that he only does what's necessary to lead mankind down the best path. Life is a limitation to be corrected. His callous disregard leaves Sphene incensed, and she tells him that the only future that she predicts is one without him. Ready to test her theory, Calyx boasts that his summon is guaranteed to destroy us. A summon? Ashtola's eyes widen and she quickly draws her weapon. The lights dim and an image flashes in all our minds. An oppressive force clouds our sight, weighs us down, and sends shivers down our spine. Calyx explains that the fear of death has permeated to everyone, and what we feel is the weight of that very concept itself. He's using the fear of every Alexandrian to serve as a beacon for his summon. In Solution 9, a resident mugs another citizen for their newly acquired Neo-Regulator. Only one registration slot remains, so the thief acts quickly, happily consigning the rightful owner to death. A public service announcement congratulates those who have registered and welcomes them to the day of deliverance. The voice instructs everyone to use their fear of death as the vehicle to drive them into eternity. For with their fear of death, they show their appreciation for the gift of endless life. Everyone registered suddenly stands motionless with their hands over their hearts as they stare into the sky in reverence. While they appear at peace, the rest of the citizens become filled with existential dread. Calyx explains that he doesn't need crystals to sustain his primal because he's using the lightning energy already collected from living memory. He encouraged the Alexandrians to define its form through hopes and thoughts and prayer, and then molded that into a concept of his own design. Ashtola questions how he learned this technique, while Alizé and Alphino quickly give Sphene and Wuklamot talismans to prevent them from being tempered. Calyx took the Alexandrians' hope of salvation from death and sculpted it into Necron, the very concept of existential dread. It attacks with the cold grip of death and bends the power of darkness to its will. It drags us all down into the abyss, but we climb our way back up and continue our assault on the false god. We strike it down and its ageless necropolis fades away. Seconds later, it returns. Killing the embodiment of the fear of death is paradoxical. After dying, it learned to fear death, and the existential dread that lingered in its remaining essence served as a new beacon to manifest it once again. It can potentially revive itself forever, growing stronger with each new iteration. Claiming victory, Calyx promises to continue to uphold Alexandria's litany. So long as our memories endure, we may live on. Sphene says he's bastardized the meaning. Those words aren't about avoiding death and becoming endless. They're meant to comfort those left behind. Realizing that her people have had a twisted understanding of the meaning for generations, Sphene has Shell connect her to Everkeep's public announcement system. As Arenville tries to shake his friend out of a trance in Solution 9, Sphene's voice suddenly echoes across the city. She empathizes with their desire to forget and to be free of fear, but promises that when they feel the weight of darkness and they endure, they will live to see a brighter dawn. And if that morning it's cold, the memories of their loved ones will warm them. She promises it gets better over time. All they have to do is let those cherished memories be their courage, and one day, they'll do the same for another. The Neo-Regulator's grasp over the enthralled weakens, causing Necron to struggle as fear gives way to hope. Calyx realizes what Sphene is doing and orders the Primals to kill her. We block the blows with Wuklamot, and Calyx begins a transfer of his data elsewhere. While we distract Necron, Wuklamot relentlessly swings her axe at the shield protecting the memory bank. Calyx obsessively monitors the transfer's progress as Wuklamot's hands begin to bleed from her effort. She continues until she struggles to stand, then screams in frustration, grips her weapon weapon tighter and keeps going. She's determined to keep her promise. She will protect Alexandria. Sphene corrects her. They will protect Alexandria. She opens her grimoire and fires a bolt of lightning into the head of Wuklamot's axe as she lunges towards the shield. Their combined strength shatters the shield, destroying the memory bank's last line of defense. Alizé lands another killing blow on Necron, and because the Alexandrian's enthrallment has weakened, it dies for the final time. Wuklamot can't stand on her feet, and her hands are so damaged she's unable to hold her weapon. As the transfer nears completion, we race against the timer. As he realizes he's been beat, Calix's mask drops, and his final miscalculation becomes his fatal error. We destroy the memory bank, and he becomes 404 not found. Wuklamot can barely speak, but with the faintest smile, she utters that she kept her promise. While she's taken home for care, we search for tempered residents in the outskirts, but they're not hostile, presumably because Sphene eroded the enthrallment. Y'shtola and Alizé elect to stay around a bit longer in order to teach the mages how to use Porxies. Galulja shows us his memorial for Otis and Zoralja that he created. He wants to become a member of the Landsguard, and when he's ready, carry their swords. In the back room, Shell and Kryl discuss their findings in the lab, but can't fathom how Calix learned how to summon primals. After several weeks, Alexandria remains peaceful. Kryl and Raha complete their report on Terral, and it's almost as long as this script. It's funny to remember that this all began with a letter to Galuf Baldessian. Since Calix's deletion, more preservation labs have been discovered, and now the Alexandrians know how to return memories of the deceased. Although not fully recovered, Wuklamot meets us in living memory and assists with the restoration process. Living memory returns to its dreamlike state, but after a few moments, the veil lifts and the sun shines over the city of gold. Regulators glow gold all across Alexandria as memories flood into the forefront of everyone's thoughts. They cry the cleansing tears of joy and sorrow as they remember the family and friends they lost. Sphene asks Gaussen if she can live in Solution 9 as a fellow Alexandrian, but he tells her no. He thinks she should be queen. Her voice brought the masses back from the edge of insanity. It's only logical that she becomes the Queen of Reason. We accompany Wuklamot back to Tuliyollal to say our final goodbyes. She's grown from a rambunctious braggart to a determined and just leader. The now upbeat Erenvel plans to go on an extended journey, and Kona is his usual bag of stress, but he's now more forthcoming and open-minded. But before we leave, Galulja thanks us again for helping him find a place he belongs. The Alexandrians decide to hold a memorial service for all the deceased who were recently remembered. Instead of shying away from death, they embrace the memories left behind. The story of Alexandria is remarkable, a country destined to die and driven to circumvent death, then led away from existential dread by a queen frozen in time. Sphene woke to a world she did not recognize or understand. Everyone she knew was gone and her history corrupted. This was not the home that she remembered, but it's her home now. While the heart and mind can't capture the memories as perfectly as data in a file, as long as that memory endures, Alexandria will live on. Somewhere in the darkness, Calix appears. He doubles over in pain and sweat pours from the top of his head. An image flashes in his mind and he gasps with fear. It's us. This doesn't make any sense. He doesn't have a real body. He admits out loud that he was overconfident, but he blames his failure on possible outside influence. He'll just start over. No. The thought of starting over makes his blood boil. Hundreds of years wasted. A decorated Ascian approaches, and Calix lets out a defeated sigh before begrudgingly agreeing to give a report as per protocol. Calix turns to the Ascian overlord and smugly tells it to apprise the other Winterers of the details. If none shall know eternity, what waits for those who hold the key?